held that check in my hand for a long time. $15,000. That's what my son decided my entire life was worth. 31 years of memories. The kitchen where I taught him to make pancakes on Sunday mornings. The backyard where I watched him take his first steps. The bedroom where I sat beside him every single night when he had nightmares as a little boy and told him, "Mama's here. You're safe." He sold all of it for $1.2 million and handed me $15,000 like I was some tenant he needed to relocate. But here's the part he never saw coming. The part that changed everything. And by the time I'm done telling you this story, I want you to think about something. About who you trust and what they might be doing with that trust when you're not looking. Because I never saw it coming either.
My name is Patricia. Everyone calls me Pat. I'm 67 years old, and I lived in a modest but beautiful colonial-style home in a suburb just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I bought that house in 1991 with my late husband, Gerald. Gerald was a good man, a quiet man. He worked 30 years at an auto parts manufacturing plant, never complained, never asked for much. We weren't rich by any stretch, but we were stable. We built something. We paid off that mortgage together, dollar by dollar, sacrifice by sacrifice. Gerald used to say, "Pat, this house isn't just bricks and wood. It's proof that we made it." He passed away in 2019. Heart attack. Sudden. The kind where you go to bed thinking tomorrow is just another day, and then tomorrow never comes for someone you love. After Gerald died, it was just me in that house. And my son, Darren. Darren is 41 years old. He was our only child. Gerald and I tried for more, but it didn't happen, so we poured everything into that boy. Every soccer game, every science fair, every heartbreak in high school, every college tuition payment that stretched us thin for 4 straight years. We did it all for Darren. And I want to be honest with you, because this story doesn't work if I'm not honest. Darren was always a little hungry. That's the word I'd use. Not greedy, not at first. Just hungry. For more. For better. For bigger. When he was young, I thought that was ambition. Gerald thought so too. We were proud of it. After college, Darren got into real estate. Not as an agent, as an investor. He started flipping houses, buying distressed properties, renovating them, selling them for profit. And for a while, he did well. Really well. He drove a nice car, wore nice clothes, took vacations to places I'd only seen in magazines. He married a woman named Cassandra in 2015. Beautiful girl. Sharp as a tack. I like her well enough, though she always made me feel like I was just a little bit beneath her world. Nothing she ever said outright. Just a look. Just a tone. They had 2 kids together. My grandchildren, Marcus and little Ava. Those babies were the light of my life. And that love for those grandchildren is part of what made what Darren did so devastating. After Gerald died, Darren started coming around more. At first, I was grateful. I was grieving. I was lonely. That big house felt enormous without Gerald's footsteps in it. So when Darren started calling more, stopping by more, I thought, my boy loves me. He's stepping up. But about 6 months after the funeral, the conversation started to shift. It started small. Darren would sit at my kitchen table, Gerald's kitchen table, and look around the house with this expression I couldn't quite read. Not nostalgia. Something more calculating. "Mom, you know this neighborhood is really taking off," he said one afternoon. "The property values around here are going through the roof." I told him I'd noticed. New families moving in. A couple of the older houses on the block had been torn down and replaced with bigger ones. "You ever think about downsizing?" he asked. I told him no. I told him this was my home. He dropped it, but he kept coming back to it. Every few months, like water dripping on stone. "Mom, a woman your age, alone in this big house. It's a lot of maintenance. Mom, if you ever sold, you could move somewhere with a community, people your own age, activities. Mom, you're sitting on a gold mine here, and you don't even know it. I want you to understand. None of this felt alarming to me at the time. It felt like concern. It felt like my son looking out for my future. Because that's what I wanted to see. But what happened next completely changed everything. About a year and a half after Gerald passed, Darren came to me with a proposition. He said he was dealing with some financial trouble. A real estate deal had gone sideways. He needed a short-term loan. He asked to borrow $50,000. I didn't have $50,000 in liquid cash. Most of what Gerald and I had was tied up in retirement accounts, and the paid-off house, was our biggest asset. So instead, Darren suggested something. He said, "Mom, what if you added me to the deed, just to help me get some financing on my end? It won't affect you at all. The house is still yours. You still live here. I just need to show some collateral for a business loan." I should have said no. I should have called a lawyer. I should have listened to the small, quiet voice in the back of my mind that whispered, "Wait, Pat, think about this." But he was my son, and he brought little Marcus and Ava with him that day. And Marcus climbed up into my lap and said, "Grandma, I love your house." And I signed the papers. God help me. I signed the papers at IT was a Tuesday morning in March. I remember it was cold. One of those gray Ohio mornings where the sky looks like old concrete and the bare trees look like they gave up. I was in the kitchen making oatmeal, listening to the radio like I do every morning when there was a knock on my door. Not Darren, a stranger, a man in a sport coat, holding a clipboard, asked if I was Patricia Elaine Mercer. I said yes. He handed me a letter and said, and I will never forget these words for as long as I live, "Ma'am, I'm the property manager for the new owners. They're planning to begin renovation in 30 days, and we wanted to give you adequate notice to vacate." I stood there in my doorway, in my housecoat and slippers, holding a bowl of oatmeal. Vacate. New owners. I thought he had the wrong house. I laughed a little. I said, "Honey, I think you've got the wrong address." He read the address back to me. My address. Then he showed me the deed transfer document. .my name was gone. Darren's name was there. And beneath it, a real estate development company called Apex Property Solutions, LLC. The sale had closed 11 days earlier. $1.2 million. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. I called Darren immediately. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost couldn't dial. He picked up on the third ring, and before I could even speak, he said, calmly, terrifyingly calmly, "Mom, I was going to call you today. Can you come over?" I drove to his house in a fog. I don't even remember the drive. While I walked into his kitchen, Cassandra was there too, sitting at the table, hands folded, like they'd rehearsed this. Darren slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a check, $15,000, made out to Patricia E. Mercer. "This is your share, Mom," he said. "I used the house as collateral more than once over the past year. The debt got complicated. Selling was the only way out. I got you set up. I found you a nice one-bedroom apartment in Westerville. First 3 months are covered. You'll be fine." I looked at my son's face, this face I had kissed 1,000 times, this face I had watched sleep as a baby, and I did not recognize him. "You sold my home," I whispered. "I'm on the D, Mom. Legally, I had the right. Gerald built that house. Gerald's gone." I thought I might faint. I thought the floor might actually open up and swallow me whole. Cassandra didn't say a word. She just sat there with her hands folded and her eyes somewhere above my left shoulder, like I was mildly inconvenient furniture. Darren pushed the check closer to me. "Take it, Mom. It's more than fair." I left their house, and I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes. Just sat there. Couldn't cry. Couldn't move. Just stared at the check in my hand. $15,000. I drove back to my house, and I walked through every single room. I ran my hand along the doorframe in the hallway where Gerald had penciled Darren's height every birthday until he turned 16. The marks were still there. Darren, age 6. Darren, age 9. Darren, age 12. I sat in the middle of the living room floor, and I cried until I was empty. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. Darker, even, than when Gerald died. Because when Gerald died, I still had my home. I still had the walls he'd painted. I still had the yard he'd mowed. I still had him in every corner of that house. Now that was gone too. I called my sister Beverly in Kentucky. She cried with me. She told me to fight it. She told me to get a lawyer. But I couldn't afford a lawyer. $15,000 sounds like a lot until you realize it was supposed to cover the rest of your life. I told a couple of friends. Some of them gave me that look the sympathetic but helpless look. A few of them quietly said things like, "Well, Pat, if he was on the deed," as if that was the end of it, as if legality and morality were the same thing. I stopped sleeping well. I stopped eating right. I moved my things into boxes in a kind of numb, mechanical haze. And then, one night, somewhere around 3 in the morning, I was sitting in the empty living room on the floor. The movers were coming in 2 days, and I was looking around at the walls, the ceiling, the windows, and something shifted in me. It wasn't rage. It was something quieter than rage. It was clarity that here's what Darren didn't know. Here's what I hadn't told a single soul. 6 months earlier, back in September, when the conversation had started to feel different to me, when Darren's visit started to feel more like inspections than check-ins, I had gone to see a woman named Dolores Hutchins. Dolores was Gerald's cousin's wife. She was a retired estate attorney. She'd done some work for us years back when Gerald's mother passed, and there was a small inheritance involved. I'd gone to see her not because I suspected Darren of anything specific. I want to be honest about that. I went because something in my gut said, "Protect yourself, Pat. You're a widow. You're alone. Make sure your affairs are in order." Dolores had asked me some questions. She'd looked over the deed change I'd signed when Darren added himself. And then she'd gotten very still and very serious. She explained something to me that I hadn't understood when I signed. In Ohio, certain property rights can be structured so that while a co-owner has legal access to the property, a documented beneficial interest agreement can protect the original owner's equitable share. She said the way the deed had been written, Darren had legal standing, but that standing could be contested if I could prove that I had been the sole beneficial owner and that the deed change had been made under false pretenses. We'd spent 3 sessions together documenting everything. Gerald's purchase history, the mortgage payments, all from our joint account, the improvements we'd made over the years, letters Gerald had written, our tax filings, a letter from Darren himself, an old email he'd sent me 2 years prior where he casually referenced your house and when you eventually sell your place. Dolores had filed something on my behalf, a protective legal instrument, a formal record of my beneficial ownership interest, and a documented claim of fraudulent inducement, meaning I had signed that deed under false representation. At the time, I didn't know if it would ever matter. I thought maybe I was just being a paranoid old woman. But I had done it. And when Darren sold that house, when that sale closed and triggered a legal review of the title, Dolores's filing lit up like a flare. The buyer's title insurance company flagged it. The sale was not as clean as Darren had told them it was. And that's when everything started to unravel for my son, but I won't pretend I knew exactly how this was going to play out. I didn't. Dolores had told me the filing would complicate any future sale, but neither of us had anticipated Darren would move this fast or be this bold. When the title issue surfaced, Apex Property Solutions, the company that had bought the house, froze the deal. They had paid $1.2 million, and their title insurance was now refusing to issue a clean policy. That meant their financing was at risk. Their whole renovation plan was on hold. They sued Darren for misrepresentation and fraudulent conveyance. I found out about the lawsuit through Beverly, who'd been doing some quiet digging for me. When she called and told me, I sat down very slowly and I was quiet for a long time. Then Dolores called. She said the buyer's attorneys had reached out to her because my filing was part of the title dispute record. They wanted a deposition. They wanted to know exactly what had happened. I told them everything. I told them about the deed, about the false pretenses, about the $50,000 loan request that turned into a title grab, about the kitchen table and the envelope and the $15,000 check. The attorneys were very interested. Meanwhile, Darren's life was falling apart in ways I had not anticipated and, I'll be honest with you, did not enjoy watching as much as I thought I might. Cassandra left him. I don't know all the details. I don't think the marriage had been solid for some time. But when the lawsuit hit and the financial situation became clear, because it turned out Darren had not been doing well. The real estate deals had been bleeding money for almost 2 years. The loan he told me about was just one of many. He'd been borrowing against everything he could, including apparently a line of credit he'd taken out using my house as collateral before he even sold it. Cassandra was gone within 6 weeks. She took the kids to her mother's place in Cincinnati. The business collapsed. And this was the piece that caught me completely off guard, Darren called me. It was a Sunday evening. I was in my new apartment, my little one-bedroom in Westerville that I had made as cozy as I could with the things I'd been allowed to take. Gerald's old reading chair sat in the corner, a photo of us on our wedding day on the wall. Darren called, and for the first time in my memory, he was crying. Not the polished, composed man who had slid a check across the table. Not the real estate investor in the nice car. Just my son, crying. "Mom," he said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know who I became. I don't know how I let it get this far." I didn't say anything for a long time. "Where are you sleeping?" I finally asked. He was in a hotel. He'd had to let the house go too. Everything was leveraged. Everything was crumbling. I hung up the phone and I stared at Gerald's share for a long time. The legal process took about 14 months. Because of my documented beneficial interest claim, the court determined that Darren had not had the unilateral right to sell the property without my consent or compensation reflecting my true equitable share. The sale to Apex was ultimately unwound, meaning they got their money back and the property came back into dispute. Darren was held liable for the fraudulent conveyance. After everything, attorney fees, settlements, the various debts Darren owed, there was a court-ordered resolution of my claim. I received $460,000. Not the full value. Not $1.2 million. The legal world is never that clean. But $460,000. I bought a small house. A ranch-style home, 3 bedrooms, a little yard. About 20 minutes from where Marcus and Ava are living with Cassandra in Cincinnati. I planted a garden in the spring, and I put Gerald's old chair by the window. As for Darren, he spent 8 months in genuine freefall. Lost everything. Had to move into a small apartment and start over at 41 years old. The fraud charges didn't result in prison time, but he received a formal judgment against him, and his real estate license was suspended. He started going to therapy. He started calling me more. It's been almost 2 years now. I won't tell you we're back to normal. I don't know if we ever will be. There's a fracture there that I don't think fully heals. You don't do what he did to your mother without something permanent being broken between you. But last Thanksgiving, he came to my new house. He sat at my new kitchen table. He helped me make the green bean casserole the way Gerald used to like it. And Marcus sat in my lap and said, "Grandma, I love your house." Same words he said the day Darren convinced me to sign those papers. But this time the house was mine. Really, truly, legally mine. And nobody was taking it that I've thought a lot about what I want people to take from this. And here's what I keep coming back to. Love is not the same thing as trust. You can love someone completely and still need to protect yourself from them. That's not a cynical thing. That's a wise thing. Gerald always said protect what you build. And I wish I had understood sooner that what we build includes protecting ourselves. If you're a widow, a widower, an older parent, please talk to an estate attorney. Not because your children are Darren. Most of them aren't. But because you deserve to have someone in your corner who's looking at the documents with clear eyes. And to anyone out there whose family has hurt them in a way that feels unforgivable, I understand. I lived it. The grief of that kind of betrayal is different from any other grief I know. Because you're not just mourning what happened. You're mourning who you thought that person was. But I'm here, in my little ranch house, with my garden, and Gerald's chair by the window. And I'm okay. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've lived something like this, leave a comment. You're not alone. I'll see you in the next one.